Record to this computer. There we go. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Professional Experts Podcast. Now, if you're not an expert, listen in. You might want to become one because it's a pretty desirable, easy for me to say, pretty desirable path to choose. I've been a professional expert as a speaker and author all of my career. And before that, I tried like 40 different jobs trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, and finally found this path, and I'm loving it. And one of my very dear colleagues and new friends in the past few years is Brian Livingston, and he's joining us today. Brian, welcome. Great to see you.
Nice to see you too, Jim, and thank you for allowing me to be on the podcast. It's a
Oh,
great
you bet.
privilege.
Well, hey, you are a certified professional expert, and you have one of these medallions and the certificate and the credentials to go with it. And you're based in Canada, but right now you're in Florida enjoying milder weather for a brief period. Yet, so they would call you
No,
a snowbird.
yes, it's my
Yeah.
first year snowbirding, and so far it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Good for you. Well, you're professional, certified professional expert, CPE, number 23. So there aren't that many of them in existence, and you're one of the first early adopters who earned that credential. And for those that are new to this, let me explain briefly what it is. A certified professional expert is a person who has built a business primarily around what they are specifically skilled, educated, experienced, or wise enough to do. And the designation as a certified professional expert comes from Cathcart Institute, and it has 6 criteria: 5 years or more of leadership level involvement in your field, advanced education for your specialty, commitment to ongoing education, so you're constantly renewing and refreshing it, service mindedness, and a commitment to customer satisfaction, ethical business practices, and a solid reputation, and client testimonials to prove as evidence of your professionalism. Well, you are that and more, Brian, and I admire you, and I'm glad we're friends as well. Tell us a little bit about your path, because you started out with different expectations and then had to do a course correction along the way.
Well, yeah, definitely there was a major course correction. There's been a few, but my career, really, my work career started as a police officer. And as I tell people, I kind of hit that PTSD wall,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't go back to work. I couldn't get back into a police cruiser. I couldn't do it.
So you just
Um,
got an emotional block to be
oh
able to. What now? Had you been a beat cop, or a patrolman in a car, or what? What was your role in the police department?
Started off in patrol, and then I moved over into traffic, which kind of led to what we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just general duties responding to complaints. And due to the size of our department, because I was a police officer in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
No kidding. Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. I would
Mhm.
put that at the top of my business card if I were you. That's a pretty cool credential. It's
Yeah,
like being a cowboy in Texas. Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Wow.
yeah,
Love that. What a
yeah.
great name, anyway.
You don't nail Canada better than that.
No, you certainly don't.
And
RCMP. Were you what was the department you were in?
it was the city of Moose Jaw.
Yeah.
Uh, they controlled the city limits, and then the RCMP controlled outside of that.
RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, right?
That
From
is
the
correct.
days
Yes.
when they were on horseback primarily. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Outstanding.
And I've actually got a couple friends who are on the mounted patrol that toured around the world, actually,
Wow.
doing
Wow.
that. But but because of the size of our department, you took every complaint. Like there wasn't really a place to pass it off to. So like one of my first shifts, I was dealing with a child sexual assault. I'd
Ooh,
just come out of police college, and those are really specialty investigations. And I came out and I said, okay, who do I pass this off to? And they were like,
you're the man,
it's all you, dude. You know, and just the combination of having to deal with those types of complaints just got to me. For some people can do 25, 35 years.
huh? Yeah.
And I just, at 4, I couldn't get back in the cruiser anymore. And I had to tap out.
Yeah.
And the problem with that was I still obviously needed to provide an income. I had, I was married. I had 2 young daughters
Yeah.
at the time, 3 and not even a year. Um, and I had to, as I state, I got involuntarily thrust into entrepreneurship because what was going to happen was any business that I might be able to get some type of salaried position out of, anything like that, well, they're going to contact my prior employer,
Of course.
right? And especially this was back in 2001. And really the admittance that there may be a mental health issue just meant you were weak and
Stigma.
crazy,
Yeah.
right?
Whereas today it's kind of widely accepted that some people, many people are powerfully emotionally impacted by those kinds of experiences, which is the same as a battle experience in many ways without the explosions.
Yes.
It's the same kind of gut wrenching and heart breaking experience when you encounter that level of depravity or human suffering or whatever. I had a mild, like if you had a terminal illness, I had a cold by comparison. Here was mine. For 3 years, I was a bill collector, repossessing log trucks in the Ozark Mountains and going into the ghettos and getting people to pay for the cars they had bought or their appliances or whatever else. And I finally went to my boss one day, kind of like you got to your moment. I went to my boss and I said, I want to go somewhere where people are glad to see me.
Yeah.
So I'm out of here. He said, hey man, stay. You've got credits accumulating and you could make a career out of this. No, thank you. So I understand. I empathize a little bit, but couldn't understand the depth of it, of course.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
this entrepreneurship, I understand, that you wouldn't want necessarily to go into a corporate structure or be subjected to all that mess. But what, how did it come together that you said, okay, I'm out of here?
Well, I finally decided one day that my marriage and my children were more important. My life was even more important. I'm very upfront with people when I tell them that if I would have continued on in my police career, my wife would have ended up a widow.
Mm,
My daughters would have ended up without a father,
yeah,
and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had to leave.
yeah.
And that just really was the big deciding factor. And I left.
Mm.
But then I had to figure out what I was
Now
going
what
to
do you,
do,
yeah,
and I still got to provide an income. And I was fortunate in the fact that my family, my mom and dad, and my grandfather were wealthy enough that I at least had a lifeline.
good.
Not that I wanted to have to use that lifeline, but I was fortunate enough to know that I could try something.
So you had a safety net. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that safety net came with a lot of begging and you know pride shattering, getting kicked when you're down. So but it would be available to me
Yeah,
if I really needed it. And so I then, a couple different things that I thought were going to work out didn't work out. Like I was going to be working for a company, and I flew into New York. I flew into New York on September 9th, 2001.
2001. Whoa,
And the business
whoa.
that, yeah, and so I was in New York for September 11th, and what happened on September 11th completely destroyed the business opportunity that I
Yeah,
had.
yeah.
And you know,
Gosh,
and
wow.
obviously, yeah. So I'm just saying things didn't really necessarily work out the way I was
Yeah.
planning. And
How long were you in New York doing that?
well, the original plan was I was going to be there for 2 weeks, but I couldn't get out of New York for four.
Whoa,
Like I couldn't, the way the airports were, the way everything was. I just I had to hunker down with like I'd flown out to work with this company, and basically, we do know, so you and I have a mutual acquaintance, a good friend of yours actually, who's very deeply involved in Think and Grow Rich.
mm-hmm.
And one of those things where, go in there and show them what you're going to be able to do, right? Come in and volunteer and be like, I will volunteer. I will come in and show you I can do this.
Yeah,
And so I worked with them for 4 weeks out of their New York office. And at the end of it, I got offered employment. It wasn't what the offer was supposed to be because everything in New York got
everything changed.
changed
Yeah, that's for sure.
as a result of that. And so I had to actually tell them, sorry, I can't accept that. That's not.
Well, once again, you were in the middle of the flames and I was on the outer edge. My first speaking engagement after 9/11, I flew to Georgia. My second one, I flew to Long Island. And so I flew into Kennedy and went out,
Yep.
and everybody was still reeling from the impact of 9/11. And when we flew out of there, we could see in the distance, see where it had happened. So I was, yeah, enough said on that. So you came back home from that and what?
Well, and so I there was a company that company was supposed to be working with up in Canada. And so I contacted that company directly and said, "Hey, I'm free."
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like and so they hired me. Ironically enough, under some false pretenses. So I moved across the country, took a role with them, sales role, really a teaching sales role, and came in and taught their people what to do, and they got a massive revenue bump, 94% in 3 months. And at the end of all of it, they still weren't covering their bills.
Hmm.
And so I was like, this was my first question for
Yeah.
you guys was when I was before I came out was how financially stable are you guys? And you guys promised me that everything was hunky dory. And so despite that 94% profit increase, I ended up getting laid off.
Gee. What was the nature of that business? What kind of sales?
It was actually trading the stock market.
Oh.
But it was micro intraday trading. Like
Mm-hmm.
they were literally trading for tenths of a penny, believe it or not. Just doing it hundreds of times a day.
Yeah.
And I'd figured out a way that you could almost just like you had an extremely high percentage chance if you did this that you could lock in
Mm-hmm.
like a tenth of a penny. But when you're doing it with 30, 40, 50,000 shares, over and over and over again, right? Those
It
you
starts
you
to
start
grow.
to,
Yeah.
yeah. And so they had a bunch of proprietary traders, and I came in and taught them how to do all this. And then at the end of all of it, that turns out that the guy that hired me sold off his share and left right after he hired me. And so we literally were done. Like we
Yeah.
were that was it at that
So
point.
here you are with a brand new choice to make.
Yep.
New business opportunity, shall we say?
Yeah. And that new business opportunity, I kid you not, was to come back, sort of come back home, come back to my wife's father's house
Okay.
uh in shame. And and the thing was, because they'd let my wife know that I would never be adequate enough for her and I would never provide, and I proved them right, you know. And we came back and we had to sleep in their basement, unfinished basement. We had a king size mattress for myself, my wife, my two daughters, and our dogs. And we were given about 100 square feet in the corner of their basement, their unfinished basement. And so I ended up we went for a drive. We didn't even have a car anymore at this point. We had no car had been repossessed. We had to pay my father's new wife. We had to pay her $50 if we wanted to borrow her van for the day to just get the kids out of the house and go for a drive.
Wow. Wow.
And so anyways, I ended up driving by a sign,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fight your traffic ticket. And I was
Your
like, well,
traffic ticket.
yep. And it was, here's your, the phone number, call if you want to
Yeah.
fight the traffic ticket. So it's one of those, like those portable
Billboards.
signs.
Oh, yeah. One of
You
those
know what I
billboards.
mean?
Yeah.
Just like we'll say like 4 foot by 3 foot
Yeah.
type things in neon. And so I was like, I was like, I wonder how qualified these guys are. They must be super qualified, right?
Yeah.
If they're going to be representing people in court. And back when I was a cop, all my qualifications were traffic related. Um, And so I called up one business and they said, oh, sorry, the owner is away on holidays right now. And so I called up a second one and they were like, the next day I was buying into the franchise. And so I discovered fairly quickly, once I actually got into it, that I was more qualified than anybody else in the industry.
In the industry. Now,
Yeah.
for the
The-
listeners,
yeah.
not in the firm, in the entire industry in Canada. Okay. Now that's some credentials.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden I was like, okay, I belong here.
Yeah.
Right. And so I ended up with, because of course my luck held true. I ended up getting into business with a total scumbag. Uh, just because that's the way I do things.
Yeah, I've
And
done that too.
uh,
Yeah.
and so I took he gave me a goal. He said in 18 months, I want to see a 100% revenue increase in 18 months, or I'm going to rethink whether or not I want to
Yeah.
have you take on this franchise, right? It was a license agreement, not a
Yeah.
franchise.
Yeah.
So anyways, I gave him 107% increase in month one. And
Woohoo. Yeah.
yeah, and he wanted it in 18 months and thought he was setting the bar high,
Yeah.
right? And it continued on from there. And all of a sudden, like he wanted to sell this to me day one. And I'm like, I don't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't have it. And he's like, well, we'll see, and
Yeah.
da, 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 da. And so I ended up doing this thing. And so I called my dad up and I said, Dad, this is crazy. Like, and he's like, well, what type of money are we talking? And I told him,
Yeah.
and he's like, well, if that's what you've got that business doing, he goes, I'll invest, right? He's like,
Yeah.
I will buy the franchise on your behalf. So I called up the owner and I said, hey, you're trying to dump this thing. I'll buy it off your hands. And he's like, hell no. He's like, I just doubled his revenue, right? And so he's like, no, I want the lion's share. So it took me 4 years to buy it out. He made hundreds of thousands of dollars off of what I was doing, not including what I had to pay to buy it out.
Yeah.
And then, through a series of things and lawyers and contracts and everything like that, um, one clause in the contract got missed. And that single clause ended up being used against me because the owner wanted to sell out completely. Like not just mine, but
Yeah.
the other one. He just wanted out. He was had an offer on the table to sell everything. So he came and he took the franchise back from me. And so I tapped out. I,
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm sick of working for scumbags.
Yeah.
Like I'd done all this, I'd done all this investment, I'd built this business up.
Yeah.
Here it
You've
was,
been a Boy
it's
Scout
doing
about
great.
it. Did
My,
it paid
my
the dues and then some. Yeah.
Yeah, and my family, our lifestyle had changed. We were living in a gorgeous house. We were, like life was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And, to go from sleeping in my 100 square foot in my father-in-law's basement to we had a house 4,600 square feet finished. It was a big lifestyle change.
You bet.
And we lost it all again.
Gosh.
And
But at
so
least you were starting with a new, almost a new skill set, a new understanding, a new base of where to begin.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who had a phenomenal product for the stock market. And I'd gotten out of the stock market because I was sick and tired of working for scumbags. Then
Mm-hmm.
I got in the traffic ticket industry and realized, well, scumbags are, and they're not specific to an industry.
No, they're
Um,
portable.
yeah, exactly. And so I started working for this guy because he had an amazing product but couldn't sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't sell it. He had two salesmen who weren't doing anything. Like I literally was meeting with him going, why do you have these guys? Like they're not doing anything for you. So anyways, before I agreed to come on with him. And right before I agreed to come on, one guy quit. One of the salesmen quit. And after I came in the first day, the other salesman quit because the other salesman realized that I was going to hold him to account
Oh, yeah.
for what his job was,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so he quit, and my buddy was all stressed out. He's like, "What are we gonna do?" And I'm like, "Dude, that was the best thing that could ever have happened to you. You just dumped a salary."
Yeah.
I'm like, because he was not
Doing
generating
fabulous.
revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came in, I took over, I created his entire sales program, did everything, and he went from me and him and an off-site programmer to now they're managing several $billion they have multiple ETFs and mutual funds and advise hundreds of brokers around North America.
Wow.
And we did all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we got all that set up, he went, well, I'm too important, and just pulled away. and was just living the high life.
Mhm.
And I said, well, if you're going to live the high life, I want to live the high life too, because, I made a lot of sacrifices and you have promised me the world. And he went, oh yeah, I'm not gonna live up to everything I said that I was gonna do. And I said, okay, well, I have shares in your company, buy me up.
Yeah.
Right. And I took a year off. I was really frustrated and upset by it. And then I came back and I was like, what am I gonna do? And you'll love this. Instead of my father-in-law's floor, I moved into my brother-in-law's floor. But he gave us a finished bedroom. So I was literally and so we moved
Thank
up
God
to
you've
his,
broken that pattern.
yeah,
Let's not go back there anymore. I
yes.
love that. And so in that
And
one, that's where you decided to go into the traffic ticket business?
yeah, I decided to jump back into that.
Yeah.
I'd been out of it long enough that not that a non-compete really holds up, but
Yeah.
I didn't have the money to
Didn't want the
fight it
cloud, yeah,
in
hanging over you.
part.
Yeah.
And so we moved up into my brother-in-law lived in northern Alberta in a place called Grand Prairie, 70,000 people.
Yep.
And
I
I
know
looked
where
up
that
there.
is, by the way. I've been right across Canada
Yeah,
from, Halifax to Victoria.
yeah. And so we went up there. There was no traffic ticket agency up there. There were lawyers that were fighting traffic tickets. And I said, let's do it. My brother-in-law's given me the opportunity for a hard reset because I don't have to worry about rent.
Hmm.
And then I just restarted from scratch.
And now you got a thriving business.
We're doing well. We
Yep.
we are doing very well.
How
Um,
many locations and how many people in your business now?
well, we have two locations, and that's going to be expanding quickly now. We have five five people. I have somebody who's taken over the Grand Prairie location. He's amazing. I'm very fortunate to be able to have him. His name is Jeremy Bays. Um, for once I hired well.
Hmm.
That was great. It was funny because by the point I'd gotten to, the lawyers had tapped out. Like they now refer to us. They go, no,
Right.
no, no, call Brian, right? Yeah, and
Love
one
it.
of the lawyers pulled me aside when he saw who I'd hired, and he's like, I don't know how the hell you did that. He's like, but great hire, and
Turns
so
out it
that
is. Yeah.
when you're getting that feedback, you're like, okay, I did this.
Yeah.
The
Now, let's define for the listener, what is the nature of your business?
Okay, so we go into court on behalf of people, and we represent them on their traffic ticket.
Okay.
Okay,
And your business is called Traffic Ticket Guru,
yeah, the traffic ticket guru.
trafficticketguru.com.
Yep.
If they
Nope,
want to look it
nope,
up.
the traffic ticket dot guru.
Oh, dot guru. Okay.
Yep,
The traffic ticket dot guru.
yep.
Right. Wow. Well, it fascinates me. You wouldn't think there'd be a business there, although there's a need. You'd think that would just be handled by lawyers like you thought originally. But
Yep.
as it turns out, if you know the court system and you know what the moving parts are in every traffic ticket scenario, then you're able to defend what otherwise would have just been a cave in and pay it and take the ding against your insurance and suffer the consequences for the person.
Yeah. And that is the mindset of too many people, too many drivers who get traffic tickets, right? They go, well, obviously I'm in the wrong,
Yeah,
if I was given a ticket. Um, you end up with some people who think they're never wrong, right?
of course.
But a lot of people go, well, the cop wouldn't have given me a ticket unless like they had the evidence to prove the case. Well,
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, right?
and the thing is that in a lot of cases, they don't have the evidence. Like, and I tell people, I say, first of all, there's a difference between being guilty and being guilty as charged.
Yeah.
When you're watching those TV dramas, the crime
Can
shows
I
and
ask
everything like
about
that,
that? Yeah.
you see the lawyers, the defense lawyers negotiating with the prosecutors for some type of plea deal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Instead of murder, we'll plead it down to man one or
Yeah.
whatever it's going to be. Well, it's the exact same thing in traffic court, right? There's a huge difference between, a careless driving charge and a fail to stay in center marked lane charge. I know it sounds like whatever,
Yeah.
but by me taking your careless driving charge and get it changed to fail to remain in center marked lane, I just saved you about $15,000 in insurance premiums over the next 3 years.
Wow.
Just just by doing that.
Yeah. And that's still admitting guilt and accepting a fine or a judgment, as opposed to trying to get somebody to waive a ticket for you, like I've got a friend. No, your friend might be able to wield some power or influence, but you'd be a whole lot better taking an honest approach and having Brian represent you in that court case and turn this into something that's going to sting a lot less and last a lot shorter uh, lifespan.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and what people don't realize, first of all, there's two things they don't realize. One, when cops come out of police college, okay, they have no clue about traffic law.
Hmm.
Okay. They really don't. And then a lot of times the person that's training them about traffic law, once they get into the cruiser, also don't know the ins and outs about traffic law.
Wow.
So you have ignorance training ignorance,
Yeah.
right? And
But no
so,
wonder they make mistakes. Yeah, I got pulled over one time. In California, it's legal for two vehicles to be in the same lane. So
yep,
for in motorcycling, they call it lane splitting. You
yep,
can drive between the lanes in slow moving traffic, not in fast moving traffic. But if it's creeping along, you can creep along at a mile or two an hour more than them and get to the front and get out of the flow and speed up traffic overall. Uh, what's wrong with that is people abuse it and they get on their motorcycles with no mufflers, making a loud noise and coming down the center lane like a daredevil, and scares the daylights out of everybody and makes them hate motorcycles. But I don't drive that way, and my motorcycle's quiet, relatively quiet. So I was on a mountain road, and there was a construction stop up ahead, and they had a policeman there directing traffic. And so when everybody stopped, I stayed in the lane markers and went up to the front, because a motorcycle will take off much more rapidly than a car,
yep,
and the traffic will move more smoothly. So I went up to the front, and the cop comes over to me and he says, "You over here." And so I pulled over and parked the bike, and he said, "Shut your engine off," and I opened the helmet up and I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "You're going to get a ticket." I said, "For what?" And I explained. He said, "No, you can't do that." I said, "Yeah, it's legal." And he says, "Stay there." And he goes away and over there. Got it. Oh, it is? Oh, well, you stay there. And so he just so that he didn't lose face too much,
yep.
I had to sit there until all the traffic passed,
Oh,
and then I could get back in line and go. But
what a
it
jerk.
was his ignorance of the law
Yep.
that contributed to all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you know, a lot of times when we get a hold of the evidence and we review it, we find major catastrophic flaws, which if people knew better, they'd realize that the prosecution couldn't proceed with the case. But because they just paid the ticket, they don't know. And then all of a sudden, and they also don't understand what's the repercussions are until they go to renew their insurance.
Yeah,
And their insurance company goes, well, you were paying $2,000 a year, now you're going to pay 5,000,
yeah.
right? For the next 3+ years. And you're like, well, why? And you're like, well, because you
Mhm.
paid that ticket.
Wow. So
And they're
you
like,
built a business. Let's helicopter up from this a little bit. You built a business around taking that obvious oversight and filling that with expert guidance so that you're the guy who knows more than the people that are prosecuting it know in most cases.
yes,
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So I want the folks that are thinking about this not to focus on your model and think, how can I get into the traffic ticket representation business? But to think about their own field and think, where is there a gap like that? What part of this does everybody experience difficulty with? And there's not really a smooth, cool, perfect answer to it yet. There's opportunity in that. There's great opportunity in that. And anytime there's chaos, there's opportunity.
yes,
And that's the thing that I'd like everybody to think about it in their own expertise. What is it you know? What is it you understand or can do that's worth paying to have you do it on someone else's behalf? You can build a career around that. See, my field, I had tried 40 different jobs, and I was by the way, I'd been in the field of investment sales. So I
okay,
was selling for mutual funds and life insurance
yep.
for IDS, Investor Diversified Services, back in 1970. And I did
Was
that
was
for,
that was that with W. Clement Stone? Was that
no, but
no?
Stone was Combined Insurance Company of North America. And I later got to know Clement Stone, who wrote the book Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude, and uh, co-authored that book with Napoleon Hill, because Clement Stone was the personal manager and business partner of Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, which is huge. And he was headquartered in Chicago, and he had built a company that was so huge in the insurance field that he was the Bill Gates of his day. He was the richest man in North America. And one of the people that worked for him a few years later was Og Mandino, Augustine Mandino. Og Mandino wrote the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, which sold tens of millions of copies, one of which belongs to me. And I was one of his followers, and I had the opportunity through the U.S. Junior Chamber of Commerce, the JCs, to be our liaison, because later I was working for the JCs. I was our liaison to Clement Stone and Success Magazine on a special project for the JCs, and my contact person was Og Mandino. And Og and I became friends. And later, he and I served together on the board of directors of the National Speakers Association. And I've been in his home, and just wow, wow, wow. Clement Stone and I served on a committee together in one organization, and I was his sort of his no, I was going to say ambassador, more like his wrangler at a convention one time. I was the guy in charge of seeing to it he got what he needed, but I was also on the program. So lots of cool stories, backstories with all this. And when I reflect on your path and the hitting a wall and then ending up in your parents' house with your family, me too. I did that. I sold mutual funds and life insurance poorly for 2 years, and wasn't meeting all the income needs. And so I had to quit that job and tuck my tail between my legs and go to mom and dad's house and bring my wife and new son. And we got the front bedroom, thank heavens, and you know, had a little base of operations with no rent for a few months. And then I got a new job and we were able to move out of there. But not before we borrowed some money from my wife's parents to get back on our feet. You know, so I've done the walk of shame. I've sat there being reassured that everything was fine by all the other parties, but still feeling like a loser and feeling guilty about the whole thing. And then rebuilding. So I so much in line with your path when it comes to understanding those moments. Well, here you are today. I look at the screen behind you and it says my mentoring guru. It says certified professional expert. And that's of course my connection with you. And then it says 10X certified, the Grant Cardone organization. Tell me about that.
Okay, so obviously Grant Cardone, for those that are familiar with him and his whole 10X philosophy.
Yep.
Grant's a billionaire out of Miami. And when I was my business was coming out of COVID, we actually did okay through COVID. Obviously far lesser because the cops were told unless you see something egregious, you don't pull them over because we don't want to risk
Yeah.
contact
Yeah.
with other people. Um, so I was fortunate enough that the people that were doing the egregious things were still reaching out to me, often enough that we scraped
You
by,
survived. Yeah.
right? Um, but when I came out of COVID, I expected there was going to be this massive jump because everyone was back to normal. The cops are writing
Sure.
tickets back to normal again, and I didn't see it.
Hmm.
And I went, well, something's changed. Like, and I'm not seeing it. I don't
Yeah.
know how to do it. And so I ended up hearing about this guy who'd gone undercover, the undercover
Oh, yeah.
billionaire,
Yep.
right?
I remember the show. Yep.
And I'd heard of this guy actually before I knew it was undercover billionaire. I heard there was this guy that flew into a city that he didn't know, started from scratch, and created $1 million business in 90 days. And I started researching who is this guy,
Yeah.
right? And then it turned out the guy's name was Lewis Curtis. And I was like, okay, well, who is this Lewis Curtis dude and how did he do it? Well, it turned out Lewis Curtis was the undercover name Grant had been given
Wow.
for this whole undercover billionaire
Yeah.
show. And it turned out Grant in 90 days created a business valued at $5.5 million in 90 days. The goal was a million
Wow.
and he hit 5.5. And it turned out as I then got involved with the whole 10X thing, Grant was pissed because Grant went in with the 10X mentality,
So
right?
he
He
expected
was
10.
exactly right. And so, yeah, he was happy he made the goal, right? The
Yeah.
goal is a million, but his real goal was I'm going to 10X this sucker. And so he only 5.5x'd the $1 million goal, and nobody else had been able to do it yet
Yeah.
in the show. Like they were, and so Grant really came in and proved this can work.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to dip my feet in, and my business started going up.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow, this stuff actually works.
So he had courses or consulting, or what was, how did you get involved?
He had a course, and I forget the name of it now because I've done a lot of them. So I apologize. I can't
Yeah.
remember
This is
what
like
the
Tony
original.
Robbins' course. something that you could buy and listen to and work the exercises or watch the videos or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah.
the next step after that is he has a thing called Cardone University, which has literally 2 decades worth of recorded content.
Wow.
Like he is forever in his head said, this is what I'm going to become.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's filmed all of it going, I'm eventually going to be this
Documented.
person.
Yeah.
So I'm going to create all this content so that by the time I'm here, I'm going to have all this content that people are going to be able to learn from.
Yep.
Right. And so he's got over 2 decades. There are thousands of videos to watch in Cardone University. So I started digging into Cardone University. The business started going well. And then they reached out to me and said, do you want to become a business coach? And I loved, I was a basketball player in university. I loved coaching. I had, kind of voluntarily helped a lot of people with their businesses.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, well, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this
Sure.
wrong, you're doing this wrong. At the same time that I'm partnering with douchebags, I'm, I'm still knowing like I'm helping those douchebags grow their businesses tremendously.
Yeah.
Um, and so
So
it's
now you've got a model, you've got a system that the one from your own experience
Yep.
combined with the structure that Grant's content followed. And so you're certified by them to be a business coach and to teach people or walk people through the 10X model.
Exactly. And then
That's
very
great.
recently, I was offered the opportunity, which I, was very grateful to accept, that I'm one of 39 people that Grant has throughout the world who actually coach his own clients. So Grant actually
Yes.
pays me
Yeah.
to coach his
Now
people that come
let's
and pay him.
put the pause button on for just a second about that. You went from struggling to figure out what in the world you're going to do to having a pretty good success and then hitting a brick wall and having to start all over again because you trusted the wrong people. And then getting it going again, getting a big house, life is good, God is great, beer's delicious, right? All's right with the world. Boom, another brick wall. And then you go through that and you see this opportunity and you end up creating your own business doing what the other people were doing poorly. And wow, that's pretty awesome. And then once your business is up and thriving, you take the Grant Cardone model and not only master it, but you get to the point where he's sending his clients to you and paying you to take care of them following his models and his philosophy. I think that's
Yep.
immensely impressive. I mean, no
Well,
wonder you're a certified professional expert. Even if we hadn't met, you would be one, right?
I thank you, but that was, it's funny because I'm listening to the points that you're bringing out, Jim,
Yeah,
and you drop names so casually, and I really don't think people pick up on it. Okay, like you worked for Earl Nightingale, right? And you created at the time his most successful ever program, right? The
yeah.
the highest.
He had
Yep.
Dennis Waitley's program as his first non-Earl Nightingale program,
Yeah.
published by Nightingale Conant Corporation. And then the next one to come along was Relationship Strategies by Jim Cathcart and Tony Alessandra.
Yep.
And they sold millions of dollars of that worldwide. And then Brian Tracy and a bunch of other people came along and they did well as, also. But
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. And there you go. You just did it again, right? So or you got Earl Nightingale. Okay. You've got Og Mandino, right? You've got Clement Stone. You just dropped Brian Tracy, who I know is a very close personal friend of yours.
Yep.
Okay.
Tony
And
Alessandra. Yep.
Dr. Tony Alessandri, who's just a phenomenal guy, right? Who used to be Grant's next door neighbor.
Yes, he did in La Jolla,
By the way,
California. I remember.
when people understand the types of names that you're dropping so casually, okay?
And
What,
Les Brown
yeah,
and yeah, and Norman Vincent Peale and Zig Ziglar. And, I mean, all these people were people I knew or are people I know and have worked with for that matter, I'm the first paid outside speaker Brian Tracy ever brought into Brian Tracy International to speak at one of their conventions.
that's incredible. I did not know that one. That's
Blows my
amazing.
mind. And here I was when I was struggling like you, I started selling Earl Nightingale's motivational recordings door to door
Yep.
back in the 1970s in Little Rock, Arkansas. And 10 years later, he was selling mine worldwide. And then when he passed away, I was the only outside speaker at his memorial service with his widow and his son in the audience.
Wow, I
I mean,
didn't know that
so,
either.
I look at your path and my path and just the other night, my wife Paula and I were talking about this and I started a little um, journal page. It's titled 1 Degree of Separation. Now, I
Yep.
started out son of a telephone repairman in Little Rock, Arkansas. My mom was a homemaker. My grandfather was an invalid in our front bedroom from a stroke, never spoke or moved for his last 7 years.
Oh,
And my grandmother lived with us and helped take care of him. And so we never had money. Nobody in my family had a college degree. We didn't know anybody that was anybody. And I had never expected to have money. And now then you fast forward and I've got all those things. And I was just listing some of the other names and
yeah. Keep going, Jim. Sorry, it just
it is just mind boggling to me how many people whose names are big names in the world that I'm that far from, likewise with you. Isn't that amazing?
it's incredible. And once again, what I want people to understand is, I meet you actually through my podcast,
Yeah,
right? I ended up having you come on, and you're dropping these names so casually. And what people don't understand is I refer to you like Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., right? Dean Martin, right? They were the Rat Pack,
yeah,
right? Well, the guys that you ran with, so to speak, were the original Rat Pack of motivational speaking.
that's true.
You guys created the ability for people like Tony Robbins and Grant
Mhm.
Cardone to exist.
Yeah,
Okay, they listen to your guys' tapes.
yeah, yeah. Jim Rohn and I were inducted in the Speaker Hall of Fame same night together in
Yep.
1985. The two of us plus Tony Alessandra and a couple of other folks.
Yeah,
Uh,
Jim
yeah,
Brown. There's another name drop,
yeah. Tony
right?
Robbins' mentor.
Yep,
Yep.
exactly. And so you look at this and you go, okay, one of the gods, literally gods and originators of motivational speaking and how to be able to accelerate your business to insanely profitable lessons has a certification called the Certified Professional Expert.
Oh man, you're promoting me awfully high. But
No,
yeah,
no, like,
but
and then you
you could
look
call me an OG,
exactly.
original gangster.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm one of the early crew, part two after the greats. The Norman Vincent Peales and Dale Carnegie's and people like that.
Yep.
But the cool thing is, I know people who worked face to face with Dale Carnegie.
Yep.
He passed away before I had a chance to work with him, but those kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
Same thing's true with Buckminster Fuller.
I have the opportunity to be able to be mentored by one of the true original greats in this entire industry.
Thank you.
Okay. And I look at it and I go, gosh, am I even close enough to be able to be one of these professional experts? Because when you casually drop names, but Brian Tracy and Les Brown are two of the people who they felt it was important enough for them
Yeah,
to get this achievement, right? That this,
true.
you know, and so I look at people and I go, you know, it's a high bar, but I can tell you, being able to get over that bar is the greatest achievement I've ever had in my life, Jim. And I am truly grateful. Like, to be mentioned as one of those 25 with the names of those people are amazing, but to be able to get it certified by an OG like you and learn from you is just, you can't put a price tag on it. And anybody who's not willing to try to get this, it's stupid. Because first of all, it is
Yes.
because
Thank you.
the steps itself to be able to get those qualifications,
Hmm.
to be able to be recognized as one, are going to accelerate your business.
Absolutely. See that
Right.
yesterday I I enjoyed writing a paper for Selling Power magazine. Gerhard Schwantner is the publisher, good friend. And it's another one of those names. Uh, but Gerhard said, Jim, I want to promote this and I'd like to, publish a piece about it. And I'd like to also interview you on video to push it out to our subscribers. So write me a paper on the pillars of mentorship and how does this work and how can one become a mentor and, put it in writing for me. So I got up the next morning excited to write that. And I asked AI, I said, hey, tell me what this is, and it came up with this article. And I thought, well, that's a little bit lame, but not bad. So I used that as my structure and then just rewrote it
Yeah.
and it added a few things and deleted a lot of things. But I felt very comfortable in that. The reason I bring that up is that one of the key elements I specified in mentorship is a mentor's goal should always be to become less necessary for each of your clients, to get them like you are to the point where you don't need me, but you might still want me around, right? And so when I look at people who are building a clientele as an annuity for themselves, building dependents who never quite graduate, always need them, let's go to the platinum level and see what we can do. I mean, it's fine to have extra things available, but if you can't get out of that loop and be okay on your own, then you haven't been benefiting from that loop. You've been dependent within it. And my goal is for people not to need me, but to really, really want me still in their world.
I love that. Yep.
Yeah. It's
I
same thing with my son, by the way.
yes,
So my goal was for him to become not only self-sufficient, but a source of strength for others. And sure enough, I mean, here he is in his 50s. He is a senior executive with Four Seasons Hotels, and they fly him around the country after 26 years of experience at the executive level with Four Seasons worldwide. He is now flying around to, I think today he's on his way to New Orleans. A couple of weeks ago, he was in San Francisco. In between, he was in in Los Angeles doing HR consulting for all of these various top of the food chain properties, living life at the top of existence. His kids are now adults, but they grew up thinking it was normal when you checked into a hotel to have a tray of chocolates spelling out your name, waiting for you in the suite that you were staying in, with robes, child size as well as adult size, in the bathroom. They
Yeah, 'cause
think
that
that's
just
normal.
happened. That just
No,
happened.
no, I remember when I thought a little sliver of soap about the size of a business card in the hotel room was a luxury.
Oh,
They said,
yeah.
bring your own.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna drop something. Is your son gonna be in Santa Barbara end of March?
Yes,
Is he
he
gonna be
is.
able to make it? Beautiful.
Yep.
No,
In
no.
fact, so will my grandson. We're holding I've got to wrap this together because we've
Yep.
reached the top of the hour, but you've been a wonderful, wonderful guest today. And I think those who listen to this and re-listen to this will start seeing those patterns and how they relate to their own life and their own business, and learn a great deal from our experience. And they'll also see that we, like most all high achievers, have not only been down off the pedestal of success, but laying in the gutter, trying to find a clean way to get back into success, for short
Yep.
whiles
Oh, yeah.
during the cycles.
Yep.
So in March of 2025, March 23, 4, 5, and 6, I'm holding the semi-annual Professional Expert Summit. And this one is going to be in Santa Barbara, California, at the Cheshire Cat Inn and Cottages, which is a charming, wonderful place. And those who enroll early are getting free hotel and meals, all that included, no extra cost, which is super cool. And those that wait until after the first of the year will be paying regular price, but it's still a bargain. And my son's going to be there. I don't know how long he'll be there, whether the full thing or briefly, but he'll be there. My grandson, who is a professional musician, a poet, professional poet, a close-up magician that gets paid for doing cardistry at fundraiser events and company events and that sort of thing, and a teacher for mathnasium part-time, and also a teacher doing some other public school work. He's going to be there. And he said, Grandpa, I want to be there. The last time I had him there was in La Jolla in May. And I had him doing close-up magic and blowing people's minds. And he said, hey, I want to stay for the serious part. I'm learning things here. I want to be there. So he'll be a wonderful addition. And Les Brown said he wants to participate. So we'll be talking with Les Brown at that event. And I've got some other folks up my sleeve that I haven't made formal contact with yet that are likely to drop in. And just this morning, I was speaking with a book publisher and story coach about coming to the event and being there to help us all craft our message, whether it's for a training program or a book or an article or whatever, to be more
Awesome.
strategic. So lots of good things coming.
Well, I will comment from being able to participate in the last one. The value was immeasurable, like absolutely immeasurable. To be able to be surrounded by the levels of expertise that are there, you can't find it anywhere else. Like you can't. It's that simple.
It's a
And
gathering of eagles, you know?
yes.
And someone said egos, and I said, well, maybe, but I meant EAGLES, the bird. Yeah. But that is the nice thing, is that people like yourself, that's who comes to this. And so when we're in that room, everyone in the room is capable of stepping to the front and taking over. and providing huge value, even if the rest of us only sat there to listen. But as it is, we end up collaborating with each other, and it becomes a bunch of power players helping each other get better at their respective craft.
Yeah.
How do people contact you if they want more of Brian Livingston?
Well, they can reach out directly. I've got two different websites. Obviously, I've got the one, the mymentoring.guru. The other one is the trafficticket.guru.
Mhm.
They can also find me on LinkedIn,
Okay,
um, and just reach out and, depending upon what their need is, I may be able to service that. But if I can't service that, I'm definitely going to find you somebody who can.
there you go.
Um,
There you go. That's the thing. When they connect with you or me, they also connect indirectly with our circle.
Yep.
And we've both got some pretty substantial folks in our circle. So it's the old 6 degrees of separation shrunk down to one.
Yes.
And we can help solve problems we're not necessarily skilled at. Well,
Yep.
thank you, Brian, for being here today. And thank you again for bringing Chandra and upgrading the experience of everybody else at our last expert summit, because she was a wonderful addition to the dialogue and the experience itself. And I hope you have a great holiday season and enjoy your warm time in Florida before returning to the land of God's frozen people.
Yes. They'll be by that point, hopefully they'll be the land of the thawed
There
people.
you go. Good thought.
Yeah.
There you go. Take care, my friend.
All right, Jim.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Thanks again for having me.
you bet. Bye bye.
Bye.